Let's talk about the differences between medicated and non-medicated chick feed. Hi, I'm Bree, also known as Chicken Chaser Bree, and through this series, I want to help you raise some chicks. So, medicated versus non-medicated chick feed. There's really one big difference that you have to be aware of, and that's improlium. Improlium is what is in medicated chick feed and what is not in non-medicated chick feed. When it comes to deciding between feeding your chicks non-medicated versus medicated chick feed, there's really no right or wrong answer. There are some things that you want to understand about each of the different feeds before feeding them to your chicks. The goal of medicated feed is to help prevent the outbreak of coccidiosis. Coccidiosis is an intestinal disease caused by parasites. What happens is the parasites get within the intestinal lining and they make it so that your chicks can't absorb the needed nutrients that they're supposed to be getting from their food. It's not really a matter of if your chickens will come into contact with coccidiosis, it's more of a matter of when and if they're able to build up enough immunity against it to beat it. The only way to be fully immune to coccidiosis is actually to come into contact with it. And to come into contact with it is usually through feces. Typically, when a mother hen is raising a chick, they will actually signal them to eat some of their feces, and that will slowly introduce them to coccidiosis and slowly build their immunity to it until they are able to beat it on their own. What the Improlium is actually doing is helping your birds build up an immunity to coccidiosis as they are introduced to it. So they're going to be introduced to it pretty much either way, whether they're on the non-medicated or the medicated feed. And the Amprolium in that medicated feed is going to help them build that immunity when they are kind of at their weakest point, which is about 1 to 5 weeks of age. If your chicks haven't been vaccinated and you're trying to decide between feeding medicated and non-medicated feed, there are some pros to feeding medicated feed. That pro is going to be the addition of Improlium and the potential prevention of coccidiosis causing an outbreak within your flock. Commercially, coccidiosis is treated with a vaccine. So, depending on where you're getting your chicks from, they may be vaccinated for coccidiosis. It's important to know where your chicks are coming from and if they have been vaccinated, because if your chicks have been vaccinated, you want to actually avoid medicated feed because the addition of Improlium is just not going to do anything because your chicks have already been vaccinated against coccidiosis. The biggest con to medicated chick feed is that it blocks the absorption of thiamine, vitamin B1, which is an essential nutrient for chicks as they're growing. Basically, what it's doing is blocking that thiamine absorption because coccidia, the parasite within coccidiosis, that parasite specifically needs thiamine to thrive. It builds off of that. And so by using that amprolium within the medicated chick feed and blocking that absorption of the thiamine, it helps to prevent a full-on outbreak within your chick and helps them to build that immunity while they're still growing. An important thing to remember about medicated chick feed is that it can't completely keep your flock from getting coccidosis, and it also can't treat a flock who is infected with coccidosis. The only thing that it can do is help aid your chicks in potentially fighting off a total outbreak. Now, you might be thinking, why in the world would I feed my chickens non-medicated feed when the medicated feed might help them from getting sick? Well, the non-medicated feed is a little bit more of a natural approach. Just as I mentioned, the hens caring for their young and showing them their feces and having them take little pecks at it and introducing them to coccidiosis slowly so that they can build up their own immunity. It's sort of similar in the way that you use non-medicated feed because the coccidiosis is there. It's going to be introduced to your flock no matter what. So allowing them to kind of build up their own immunity is a little bit more of the natural approach to take. And I just want to say that either way is totally fine. It's always up to you what you decide what you want to do for your flock. You are the decision maker and you know best for your own flock. For me personally, I like to choose a non-medicated feed because I do prefer to do things a little bit more naturally. Choosing a non-medicated chick feed also helps prevent any thiamine or vitamin B deficiencies in the future. Thiamine deficiencies can be a problem within chicks, and providing a feed that actually has the vitamin B within it, as well as it's not blocking the absorption of that vitamin B, is very helpful to your chicks down the line. And there are ways to help prevent an outbreak on your own without feeding medicated chick feed, just by keeping your brooder clean, changing out the bedding often, keeping their waterers clean, changing out their feed. These are big things that can help your chicks from having a total outbreak in coccidiosis. Keeping everything very clean is important in general, but especially in those first 5 weeks of when your chicks are pretty much at their most vulnerable. Some other natural options include adding garlic to your chicken's water or providing it in their brooder, free choice. It's an anti-parasitic, and many people use garlic for their flock throughout their entire lives. I know I've used garlic for my flock before. I love it. It's great for them. Just gives them a little bit of an immune boost. Another good option is adding prebiotics and probiotics. If your chicks are coming in unvaccinated, it's something that I highly recommend. I used to never do this with my chicks, but I noticed that it actually does make a pretty big difference. When it comes to chick feed, my go-to is Grubly Farms non-medicated Little Pecks. And the reason I choose this feed is, well, there's actually a few reasons, but one of the big reasons is there's no soy and there's no fish, meaning the only protein in this feed is coming from bugs, black soldier fly larvae to be specific. And one of the coolest things about that protein is that it actually recycles 35 pounds of food waste that would have ended up in a landfill anyways. Another big reason that I use is there's no corn. There's no corn in this chick feed as well as their layer feed. There's really great natural ingredients in here. That's what I'm looking for when I feed my chicks as well as my hens. Those natural ingredients are what you want to look for in your feed as well. And it's up to you to decide whether you want that medicated or non-medicated chick feed. But I highly recommend using a high quality feed that uses all natural ingredients and that you can trust. Thanks so much for hanging out with me today. You can also find me on Instagram at Chicken Chaser Bree. I share a lot of helpful videos there about chicks, hens, coop building, all that fun stuff. And if you learned something today, I hope you'll come back and hang out next time.